House of Cards podcast, the show where we break down the art of creative real estate investing. Join us as we dive into the world of real estate with insider tips and tricks for making your investments go further. From buying with no money down to flipping properties for profit, we've got you covered. Plus, stay tuned for expert guest speakers who will share their knowledge and experience in this ever-changing market. So grab a seat and get ready to learn the secrets to success in real estate investing. And now, from Alaska to New York, your hosts, Chris James and Jesse Stanton.
All right. Happy Saturday. Welcome, one and all, to the one and only House of Cards podcast. Thank you guys for being here. We're really excited. We've got some amazing things that we're going to be talking about today. We've got an amazing guest for you guys. I'm really excited. Chris, how you doing this morning, bro?
Man, I'm actually doing great. It's so funny because when I woke up this morning, I kid you not, I don't know why I thought today was Friday. I kid you not. I don't know what happened, but I thought today was Friday.
Dude, it feels like another Friday. It feels great.
But it was good. I woke up in a panic where, you know, you used to work at a W-2 and literally you got your alarm set to get to that job. Yeah. I woke up like I was late for something. It wasn't the case though. It wasn't the case. I marinated for a second. Like, this is going to be okay. It's not Friday.
Is that a nightmare? Do we call those nightmares?
I guess in the real estate world, I guess you can call it that. Good morning, Ken. Good to see you here, man. I'm so excited about your deal, man. Angel and the team, we were definitely going over this morning as well. That one's going to be one for the books. So good job on that one, man. And I'm not going to share too much until it officially closes, but that should be set in stone within the next 2 weeks. But great job on that again, Ken.
Dude,
so yeah,
I want to say real quick while you're talking about Ken, I want to say I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk with him to confirm this. So forgive me, Ken, if this is a little premature. But I want to say I saw somewhere I don't know if somebody sent it to me, if I was just scrolling real quick, and I haven't had a chance to go back to it yet. But I think Ken just left his W-2, man. I think he just dived into this full time.
Really?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Ken. But if that is the case, I wanted to say I seen that, and I had made a mental note to go back, and I wanted to talk with you about that. But since you're here, maybe we'll talk about it now. But yeah, if that is the case, bro, congratulations, man. That is awesome. I want to say, yeah, I saw
congratulations, man.
State is W-2.
Yeah, I remember when I first left my W-2, man. It was nerve-wracking. It was very uncomfortable, right? Going into the entrepreneur world is so different from just working the W-2. You know exactly what you're going to do. It becomes tedious, especially if you're doing it over a decade, right? So that's amazing. That's amazing feeling. Definitely amazing feeling. He said, "I did totally leave my." We'd love to hear more about that. That's
yeah.
I didn't see that. Good. I didn't see that, but that's phenomenal.
We'll have to have Ken on the podcast after this thing closes and get just all the dirty details on what he's doing, because it's amazing.
No, I'm so excited about that. So, guys, welcome to the House of Cards with Chris James and Jesse Stanton. Don't forget to join our Facebook group. It's at the bottom of the screen. You see the banner there. Don't forget to subscribe. We're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, iTunes, and all the good stuff. We're streaming from 8 different platforms, destinations, I should say. So, guys, don't forget to squat up in the comments. And like Jesse stated earlier, we have amazing guests. Ryan is I can't put words on it, but Ryan's an amazing individual. He's based out of Florida. He's been doing some pretty neat things, which he's going to share today, as far as how he actually, I believe, left his W-2 job as well. So I would love to hear more about this. I'm not going to, prolong this. We're going to bring him up now. And Ryan, welcome to the House of Cards.
Thanks for having me, guys. How's it going?
Okay,
good, man. Just trying to get tan like you, bro.
I was outside all day yesterday, so I'm definitely sporting it a little bit.
Well, thanks for rubbing it in.
Yeah, I live in a little bit of a different world from you, Jesse.
A little bit, man. I think Chris and I are trying to do what you're doing. Trying to do this down in Florida, man.
Come do it.
Amazing. So, guys, before we jump right into it, just I see Facebook user says, "Sup, friends." We wish we knew who you're talking to. Well, who we were talking to. Please give StreamYard access to make your name visible. I believe it's the top three dots on the right hand side. Go down to the last paragraph and grant StreamYard access. We love to know who we're speaking to and to how we can be a resource and connect you with the right individuals. But Ryan, man, great to see you. Great to see you. And I know you mentioned that you're traveling right now, so thanks for. I know you could be doing anything else, but you're doing this for us, so we truly appreciate it. So,
Yeah.
Ryan, tell us what's going on. Where you got started in your. Well, let's start from your W-2. Let's start from W-2. You was working at W-2, then now are you doing real estate full time? Are you doing a little bit of both? What does that look like?
Yeah, full time as of 3 weeks ago, I think, or maybe 4 weeks ago. So
congrats.
very recent.
Congrats, man.
Yeah, super exciting. It's been a wild couple weeks for sure.
I love that. What were you doing before?
Electrical engineering, so very different.
So what made you go into more so real estate? Out of curiosity, was it just more so, was it the money? Was it like family? Was it something personal? What kind of pushed you into that direction?
Yeah, just intrigue. I think that the interest in investing in general has always been something that I've had, and it's just kind of progressively moved through what I mean, I don't know if you can call it the normal channels, but it kind of feels like the normal channels. So like learning about stocks, then getting into like stock options, then getting into crypto, like just going through those channels of like figuring out what investing is. And that led to real estate, and lots of those other things didn't go as well as I had hoped, but they also just weren't exactly what I was looking for. It was what I learned was that they were all more or less a channel for people that didn't have the knowledge to do other things. And so, although I enjoyed it, after 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it was, of doing those things, I just realized that, hey, I'm not getting the excitement and the knowledge that I want to do stuff with this. It's just, click a button and then wait 40 years. And to be quite frank, I'm very impatient. So I wanted to learn things that were actually pushing me, whereas, just adding my Apple stock options, every couple of months wasn't exactly what fit the bill for me personally. And so that kind of pushed me closer to the real estate game.
I love that. And because everyone has a story, right? Your origin, and a lot of people feel like this is a very uncomfortable position to be in. And I think you kind of tackled it in a great way where you wasn't looking back. And I like that, man. I really like that. A lot of people will kind of give up during those obstacles and those trials. And I'm a firm believer where, I think everyone's obstacle and their trials get them to where they need to be. And
Absolutely.
you have to go through those things to be your basically you. I think we all have our own different origin, our own different reasons why we're here. But I appreciate you sharing that, man. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fun.
And so can you tell us exactly where you're located at? Are you personally buying, like, where are you at in your business? Like, are you wholesaling? Are you doing a little bit mixture of both? Are you are you integrator, visionary? What does that look like for you and your business?
Yeah, I'll try and give the most summarized version I can, and then you guys can dig in where you see fit. But yeah, so I spent a couple years doing the like read books, listen to podcast thing, right? Trying to figure out what was going on. And then moved to Jacksonville about exactly a year ago, from Montana. So I'm in Jacksonville now. And when we moved to Jacksonville, I joined Sub 2 at the same time. For those that don't know, that's the mentorship that we're all a part of. So I joined Sub 2 with the intention of basically taking the money that I was going to be just investing in the stocks, and kind of had been hearing the waves of, invest in yourself, invest in mentorship, turbocharge things. So did that, and spent a good portion of the last year not doing too much that was noticeable, is how I think I would put it. So I didn't buy any houses in the last 8 months, or the last year, I guess, of being in Sub 2. I did add an Airbnb to my house, which took a good amount of time. So I spent a while doing that, kind of trying to learn the ins and outs of that. Dabble with some multifamily, dabble with, I don't know, a little bit of everything. right? A little bit of everything, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do and what made sense. And then I had a shift when I realized that I wanted to get out of my job, because the stuff that I was doing was kind of more behind the scenes, growing the knowledge base, meeting a lot of people, but it wasn't going to get me to the level I needed to be at to be able to push forward. And so then I really dug in and started putting in, as much time as I could on the specifics of how am I going to make money now, but also use that to turbocharge making money in the future. So my short answer is I'm doing 3 things right now. I'm trying to be as focused as I can. I can't say I'm crushing it at that. But I do a lot of gator lending. So for people that don't know, I lend earnest money for people to get into deals that they otherwise wouldn't be able to get into. It pays really good returns. It's a little bit riskier. That's usually the case, right? Risk versus reward. But within 2 months of doing that, I was making enough income to quit my engineering job. So it did what I wanted it to do. It was able to replace my income. The second I saw that, and I saw that I was just getting started, that was all. Like, I was like, I'm close enough, right? I'm going to call it. So I called it and started a wholesale team with Houston McKay. If you guys have not met him, one of the coolest people I've met. And so him and I started a team. We've got 3 people that call with us, and we are seriously figuring things out right now. And it's super fun because we mess stuff up constantly and really don't have much of an idea of what we're doing. But the day I quit my job, we actually got our first deal under contract. So that was 3 weeks ago.
Oh, nice, man.
And then since then, or in the 2 weeks following that, we got an additional 5 deals under contract, which is crazy to me, at least. And so we have 6 deals under contract right now. We had one that was our first one was supposed to close yesterday. And of course, something went wrong with that. So
Naturally.
that's naturally. So they're all still under contract as of now. But yeah, just doing the thing over there, trying to figure out how to delegate, trying to figure out how to hire people, trying to figure out how to lead, all that fun stuff. And it's awesome. I mean, it literally took off the day I quit my job. So I don't know how I could ask for, better timing, a better position to be in. And then the third thing right now that should be coming up really soon is I'm actually working on some software that I've developed with Myron Briley to generate low equity leads. And so we're going to be putting that out pretty soon. And that's what I've been using to get these deals that I've gotten in the last couple of weeks, which is crazy. Like I said, I mean, from 1 deal to 6 in 3 weeks, and I just started getting better leads, and I don't know, one thing after another, and here we are.
Dude, there's a lot going on there. I want to go back and
I told you I'm trying to focus, but I'm not crushing it.
Oh no, this is great, bro. This is great. But I would love to hear, because you said you spent the better part of between 8 months to a year kind of just collecting information and deciphering what was applicable, what wasn't, and what direction you were going to go to. At what point, like, what did that look like specifically for you when you decided, all right, today's the day that I'm no longer just consuming content or taking in information. This is the day that I'm going to actually move forward. This is the day that I'm going to actually go do something. Because I know a lot of people, man, for a lot of people, including myself and Chris, especially when you're teetering on leaving your W-2, that's the hard part. It's like, well, when do I make that decision? What was that process like for you? Like for everybody else who's kind of wondering the same thing, like, I don't know what these next steps are. I'm scared that I'm going to jump and I'm going to fail. What does that look like? Like, at what point do you stop consuming content, taking in information, taking notes, and you just go act on it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm an action guy, I think. So I definitely was trying to jump into the fire. And the thing for me was more figuring out which fire to jump into, And so I was trying, I felt as if I was taking action, but like I said, to me, it just wasn't the action that people notice. So getting on as many Calendly calls as I could, going to as many meetups as I could, reading, copious amounts of books on different topics. That, to me,
you're saying that was what you did or what you weren't doing?
That was what I was doing a year ago. So that was kind of how I started, right? Because in my head, I was seeing all of these different paths that people were taking. And I was the classic, right? The fire hose mentality. It's all coming in. Which one do I choose? And for me, I was like, well, I don't feel any rush to choose one. I want to really understand them all and be able to pick out what works best for me. And so that was where I started. But I'd say the biggest turning points for me, I can't pinpoint an exact one, but the realization as I talked to more people that it wasn't, that I wasn't talking to people that were geniuses. And I don't say that to put people down. I hope it doesn't sound like that, but I was just talking to normal people that were doing normal things. So I'd talk to somebody that says, I make $100,000 a month, right? Which I didn't even know was a thing. I didn't know you could do that, right?
Yeah.
But then I talked to people and said, how are you doing that? Well, I just every day I do, X, Y, and Z. And I've just been doing that for the last 3 years. And then I talked to the next person. They said the same thing. Next person, they said the same thing. And so then I was writing down every day, just do the work, right? And the only thing left to figure out was which work did I want to be doing. And so the main turning point I can say is a couple months ago, I flew out to Phoenix for the first time, really kind of on a whim, just to go out there and meet more of the people that we kind of know virtually through our mentorship, and just meet them, go to lunch with as many people as I could, get around those people. And a lot of people out there motivated me to really push to quit my job, because I had been telling everybody I intended to quit, kind of somewhat secretly. I'm planning on quitting, I'm prepping to quit, whatever it may be. And they're just like, okay, when are you doing it? Well, I haven't figured out a time yet. I'm kind of waiting for this, that, and the other. But having people that were basically recognizing the things I didn't recognize in my own work and saying, you're on the right track, you're already finding success. The only thing left is for you to really multiply that time and really push yourself to the point where you have to succeed. And so I went back from that trip and I quit right after, because it was just like, I say I quit right after. I turned in my notice, and stuck around for a couple more weeks, but I essentially quit right after.
Wow.
And that was what it was. I went out there and I still didn't have specific direction on what I wanted to do. But what I had realized was that it didn't matter what I was going to do, because when I was out there, I met people that did everything you can think of, right? I mean, if you guys sat there, you could list people that do, business coaching, they do wholesaling, they buy STR, short-term rentals, mid-term rentals, whatever it may be, and they're all successful. So it didn't really matter which vessel they chose. It just mattered that they became an expert in something and went and did it. And the more I saw that, the more I believed it, to the point where I said, okay, I feel like I have the skills here, to go and do this. And the only thing that was left was the fear of what if, right? What if this doesn't work out? What if I don't make the money I need, whatever? And for me, I actually just kind of sat there and thought, with the people I have become surrounded with and the opportunity that has been made available, I truly, and I still feel like this, I say it not hoping it happens, but I truly feel that if I, lost all the money I had and lost the business I was running, that I would just do it again. Like, it doesn't feel like it's something that can really be taken away. And because of that, I just no longer feel that pullback. People say, what if the housing market crashes or whatever, whatever it may be. I just don't feel that to be a valid roadblock anymore, because I feel as if not only do I have the knowledge, because I feel like I don't have that much knowledge, but more I have the resources to where I can overcome those things. And so all that stuff put together equaled, let's do it.
Yeah. I love that, dude. Well, how would you say that's all mindset? Like, just understanding not only that you have the resources, but how to go connect with those people, how to leverage those relationships. So like you said, if you did lose everything, you go back and regain it almost like that.
Yeah. I don't think it's all mindset.
But I do think it's all mindset?
I don't think it's all mindset, because I think that, I'm going to butcher the quote, but Alex Hormozy, one of his quotes is talking about having an indisputable stack of evidence to prove that you can do what you say you can do, or that you are who you say you are.
Yeah.
And so for me, yes, it is mindset to a degree, and I have not mastered mindset at all. But the proof for me was in the pudding. So for example, me telling you that I can successfully find and wholesale creative deals. I was not confident in telling you that, or telling agents that on the phone, until I had finally done the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so clear because I did it for 3 months without a deal. And the day I got my first deal, I got a second deal within the same day.
Mm.
It's a shift for me. And I knew it immediately. I mean, I sat there and was like, I have just gained the confidence to close more deals.
Yeah.
And it immediately happened. Like, and I'm not saying not everything's going to be immediate, but I just had the proof. So I got off the phone closing my first deal, got on the phone right after that and said, yeah, I just did a deal like this. And I had that confidence. And they said, wow, if you can do that deal, you can do this deal.
Mm-hmm.
So the mindset was there, but it was also that I had now proven to myself that I was capable.
Right. It was backed with action.
Yeah.
I love that. You also mentioned like what if. I just recently was watching more Jim Rohn stuff. I love Jim Rohn. And there's a quote from him. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but essentially he was saying like people who say what if, he calls that the language of the poor. And so you talk with other people, especially friends and family. And Napoleon Hill even said, the one thing that will hinder your success are your friends, family, and neighbors, taking the advice of your friends, family, and neighbors. And it's because those people, not necessarily that they don't want you to succeed, but they see flaws in us. They see, where we could fall short, where we could fail. And they're saying it to protect us. And in saying it to protect us, it hurts us. And like you mentioned, like just being able to fly over to Phoenix and be surrounded by somebody completely different with a completely different, mentality on what was possible and who you are, and could see the potential in yourself just to, reignite that fire and solidify that confidence for you to be able to go back and quit your job and jump into this full time. But then now you got 6 deals that you're moving on. It just goes back to show the importance of the people that you're surrounding yourself with. I listened to Pace this morning. Were you on his Zoom of Project Forward at all this morning?
Yep.
Dude, that was such a phenomenal Zoom.
Yeah.
There was one part in there where he was talking about having a vision, going and finding the bunnies and things like that. And there was an individual in there who said, what if I don't have vision, or something to the tune of that? And his response was basically, you're just not hanging around the right people.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be hanging around other visionaries, people that are going to, encourage you to unlock those things in your head to get you out into a totally different space. And if you're not where you want, money wise or anything like that, you need to reevaluate who you're hanging out with. And so it's neat to see this happening, not only in real time for Chris and I, but to hear, just the progress and everything that you've made in such a short amount of time. And based on what you're telling me, it sounds like that had a lot to do with it. Would you agree?
Yeah, the environment's everything. I mean, like I said, I very vividly remember my first meetup in sub 2, hearing somebody say that their goal is to make $100,000 a month, which is kind of like the buzzword goal, I guess, that I hear people say now. But I heard that, and in my head, I was like, are they just saying that? Because how does that happen?
Right.
What does it look like to actually do that? I've never heard of that, because everyone's goal that I knew was to have a job that paid you $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right. That's the benchmark. You make a 6-figure salary. And these people are saying, I want to have a 6-figure month. What's the difference? That's when I kind of go back to what I was talking about. It wasn't that these people were like Harvard graduates, right? At all. It wasn't that. It was that not only were these people saying they wanted to do that, but they were breaking down how they were doing that. And that was like when I was in Phoenix, that's what I was experiencing. People saying, this is what my business looks like. Come take a look inside my business and see how I am or how I'm planning to do this. And when they did that, I don't know about you guys, but when I first heard how somebody was planning to do that, or actually it was how somebody was doing it, I kind of had this moment of, that doesn't sound that hard, that's very doable. Is it doable tomorrow? For most people, probably not. But is it doable? Absolutely. Right. With a little bit of time and a little bit of effort. And so the surroundings was just taking something that I hadn't even heard of and making it very tangible for me, to where I said, I'm going to go replicate what I was just told. And that's what I'm doing right now. It's just because now I have people that say, not in a negative sense, but I have 6 deals in escrow and the person I'm talking to every day has 50 deals in escrow, right? So
Yeah.
they're showing me, how do you scale? How do you delegate? How do you build a team? Whereas if I had 6 deals in escrow and I go to talk to somebody that is your classic, one day I'm going to get into real estate person, they're going to be like, whoa, why are you doing so many deals or whatever? It's a totally different perspective. And so when I got in front of the people that said, congratulations, keep going, and were pushing me in that direction, that makes it so that I wake up every day with more of a purpose instead of feeling the satisfaction of I did the thing that I set out to accomplish.
Well said.
Love that. One of the biggest things, one of the best pieces of advice that I got going along with this was, and it all correlates to making sure that you're intentional with who you're surrounding yourself with. But I remember thinking to myself, man, if I could just break into this business and I could just replace my income, if I could just make, $5,000 a month, then I would be set. That would be so cool. And what I discovered looking back, for anybody else who's watching, hopefully this might give you some perspective as well. This will help you to go along with what Ryan was talking about, is when I was looking to get my first deal, or when I was looking to make $5,000 a month, like that was my goal. And so those were the caliber of conversations that I was having. So I would go to somebody making $100,000 a month, and my questions weren't surrounded around solving problems that generated revenue of $100,000 a month. My questions surrounding them were, which CRM are you using? Are you using batch leads or prop stream? What type of lists are you stacking? What markets are you working? What blah, 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 right? Like they're low level questions. And so when you're setting goals, if you're trying to get your first deal or whatever, one of the big things that I have found to help me, and it sounds like you're doing as well, Ryan, is you no longer ask yourself, well, how do I get my first deal? Or, hey, if I can just make $5,000 a month, then once I make $5,000 a month, then I'm going to make $10,000 a month, and then $20,000, and then $50,000, and then eventually I'll get to $100,000. But being able to reverse engineer that and put myself in the mindset from ground zero of how do I go from zero to $100,000 a month? When you put yourself in that mindset and you're looking to solve problems through that lens, you start to see different problems that need to be solved. And the conversations that you're having with those individuals are no longer, what CRM are you using? What are you using to skip trace? Where are you getting your data? All that stuff is important, but those are low level. I mean, could you imagine going to like flying on a private plane with like Ed Milet or Grant Cardone or Pace Morby, and those are the level of questions you're asking them? So when you start seeing things from a different perspective, like you were talking about, getting an inside look into how are people doing $100,000 a month? What does that playbook look like? What does behind the curtains look like in their business? It starts to open up, so many different possibilities and answer questions that, would have otherwise not even been on your radar. So I really appreciate you pointing that out, man, because I feel like that was such a golden nugget that I wanted to go back and address. I feel like it was just so impactful, man. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, definitely. And, with all of that stuff, it's just recognizing how to build something at scale, I think, and how to ask those questions, right? Because when you see those people, that was kind of the trigger for me, was not, which objection did you overcome to get this house under contract, right? It was, which team member did you use to get that deal under contract, and how did you build a structure to where that team member was able to do that? Like that's the type of stuff that I've been trying to get into more, and I've even talked to you guys about that, and still would like to more about like the hiring process, right, and the structure of who does what job and how that flows and that type of stuff. That's what's interesting to me, because that's what I think has the potential to drastically change what it looks like to do business, and not did I solve this one niche problem? This is kind of a tangent, but when you see the people that post on Facebook and they're like, hypothetically, if Joe Smith, has this much on his mortgage and his wife hates him and he's moving to Puerto Rico and he needs to, 1031 his money. And I'm like, dude, bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
the thing for me. I was like, let's move on to the bigger picture. And what I tell the guys that call for us now is always just go do the thing and then come to me and tell me what it was that was your biggest roadblock. Because they were doing the same thing when we started. They'd be like, can you train us more on what happens if they say they want to go buy another house? And I said, go make that phone call and then send me the recording of the phone call and we'll review it. Because the thing that I learned with that is that Pace is the one that really drills this home, right? He says, you're going to go through these Zooms and you're going to listen to me tell you a million different things in specifics, right? Exactly how to deal with the situation. Yep. And you're going to get off the Zoom and you're going to forget all of it. Why? Because it didn't apply to the situation that you were in now.
Yes.
But if I was to get on a phone call, and this is what I try to push now with our guys is, if you're to get on a phone call and you think you have the chance to close a deal that's going to make you $20,000, but you don't know the answer to that question, and you get off that phone call and get the answer, you will not forget that answer ever, because it has now applied specifically, and you felt the pain of what it was like to not have the correct answer to the question. That's 100%. The experience aspect.
So true. Because I was one of those hypothetical guys when I first started out. So that's amazing that you shared that. I love that you shared that as well. And more so, I know you mentioned team. Now, how many of you are in business? I know you say you just got appointed as far as with your business partner. Do you guys have entire operations as far as on the Gator side of things, or you guys are more branching out to the wholesaling aspect and the buy and holding?
Yeah. So my Gator stuff is just relationship based. It's just me with people I've connected with. More or less, I'd consider it a passive business. Wholesale business is myself and my partner, Houston. And then we have 3 people that call for us right now, and are very actively seeking to understand how to hire more people and structure the business better. Again, great problem to have, right? But we are experiencing so for example, yesterday I actually was out all day diving on a boat, and it was the first day that I've taken, I guess, off, you could say, since we really started going full scale. And it was pretty stressful because we had a lot of things going on, right? There was just life, right? I mean, we had agents calling, realtors calling, deals are falling through, liens are coming back on properties that we have under contract, just hectic. Wow. And I like doing that work, but I also, every time that stuff comes up, I call or text my partner, just like, how are we going to learn from this? It doesn't mean that I'm not okay with it happening. It's just, how do we structure better in the future to where we have an answer to this stuff? And figuring that stuff out is difficult, but but we're stoked. Every time this stuff comes up, we always remind each other that we are upgrading our problems, and that's all we can ask. Is to upgrade our problems. Our problems are getting bigger because our scale is getting bigger, and we're happy with that. But yeah, so it's 5 of us right now.
That's amazing, and I know a lot of people face a lot of problems, right? Whether that's in business, personal, but business, especially being an entrepreneur, it could be extremely tough. Where you want to give up, right? A lot. Let's be transparent. Every successful individual I know, they got problems going on that no one knows about, right? It's the internal things, how they're pushing through it, they're failing forward, as Freddie just stated. And I think you're in a good place where you're at the not beginning stage, but at the stage where specifically you can actually pivot, right? And I'm not for sure if your team are they cold callers or acquisition managers, out of curiosity.
I don't really know what they're called. They do they basically warm up leads with agents.
Gotcha. Warm up leads for you guys to close them, correct?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So essentially, having the right team in place is essential. Jesse and I, we had a few obstacles, letting people go, bringing people on board, figuring out that's not a right fit for them, not a right fit for us, and we have to go through those troubles. But it's always a light in the tunnel, and I tell Jesse this all the time, and we literally communicate about this stuff literally on a daily basis, that we kind of look for these obstacles. because essentially it's always a growing pain, a growing stone, or whatever you want to, however you want to communicate that is. I really put myself in uncomfortable positions on a daily basis, Jesse, as well, and where sometimes it's good to not know everything.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of newer investors that's going into real estate, they think they have to know every single thing. And like, for instance, you just mentioned like you're successful at the gator lending aspect of things. I guarantee that somebody watch this now and watch it in the future. Wonder if I reach out to you, want to change their entire business to gator lending now, where they're solely focused on probably just wholesaling.
Yep.
And one thing that Jesse's very good at always stating, just more so you got to focus on one thing. And once you master that, then you can start, dipping and dabbing to other things. And, you probably 3, 4, 5, 6 years later, still trying to figure out why I'm not successful at one successful thing. And it seemed like you solved the puzzle with your team, which is a good thing. I like that, man. Especially the gator aspect. And then now you're building an operation, you're coming across different obstacles, and now it's just pushing through it.
Yeah, I would by no means say I have solved the puzzle.
Oh,
I mean, I'm like all question marks. Seriously, I really know very little of what I'm actually doing. But the main thing that you said is something that if I do because of you guys. Actually, I now do multiple daily Calendly calls. Right? You guys told me about kind of how you guys set up that, and the second we got off that call, I started doing it, and I've done it every day since then. And one of the biggest things on those calls is exactly what you said, because that's what I needed, which was to focus. And like I said, I don't think I'm necessarily the best example of it. But the attempt that I've made is to focus on mastering something and then to develop alongside of those things. And that was the vision that I had. So to break it down a little bit, I started with the gator lending because I sat down and I looked at everything I could find. And I said, what do I think I'm set up well for with the resources and knowledge I have that can make me enough money to quit my job as soon as possible? Because that was my first goal. And when I hit that and I had set that up, and I now, I could now lend people earnest money in 5 minutes. So I had the system, I had the contracts, I had a CRM lined up, I had my system in place. I said, okay, now how can I grow this business? And I talked to Kevin a lot. Kevin and I talk about gator lending, and Kevin was like, well, every deal I wholesale, I also lend on. Right. So he's lending the earnest money to his buyers on his wholesale deals. And I was like, perfect. Right. That is a way that I can build now another business that's going to amplify my first business and also introduce a ton of new problems. And so I said, okay, let's do that. Let's build this wholesale business. Now I get to have a partner, which is something I've always wanted, somebody I can work on stuff with, but I can also elevate this previous business that I built. And so, like I said, I wouldn't say that my focus was maybe ideal in how I separated those things out, but I did have a clear intention. It wasn't that I was doing lending on earnest money, and then I also was now going to start, renovating and buying boutique hotels or something. It was like a very clear, to me at least, a clear path forward. And then once I built the wholesale business, or I'm building it as we speak, but then I ran into my issue of getting the highest quality leads for my team, because I wanted them to feel like we were providing them the value that they needed and also setting them up for success. And so I started dabbling on the software side of things on, hey, how can I take the resources that are currently available and build something that's going to allow my team, every time they get on the phone, to feel like they're on a really high quality, solid lead, and not feel like 70% of the time they call the person and they're like, I just put my house on the market, or why would I sell it to you this way? The people with no pain, essentially. And so now that's my third business, is that software side of things that we're releasing. But again, in my head, I have a clear central vision, and I'm just starting to try and draw things in that are going to help us build on those things.
Well said.
I love that, bro. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I would love to have you address this real quick. I loved Grady's comment here. I'm one of those that feels like I have to know before I do. And I can resonate with this. I know Chris can resonate with this. Hard hill to overcome when I also learn best from doing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that, Ryan?
Well, I certainly feel the same way. I have always felt like I had to know before I do, and that's why I read a lot of books, listen to a lot of podcasts. But I think there has to be a point where you differentiate between the knowing that you're talking about, which is like an intellectual knowledge, and the knowing through experience, which is what I was talking about earlier. So like, I don't know, baseball analogy. If you were to watch 100 million baseball games and see how every pitch is thrown and what's coming, right? And you know the mechanics of a swing and all these things. I'm a baseball person, so sorry. But you've got all that, right? And what are you going to do now? Now you're Joe Schmo and you walk into a Major League Baseball game and you go up to bat and you know exactly how to hit a baseball. You've seen a million games. You've seen all these different pitches. You know exactly what's coming, but you've never hit a baseball. You're going to get up there and mentally you're going to know what to do, but the baseball is going to get thrown and you're going to have no idea how to actually hit the ball because you haven't done it. And it's the same thing. So there's no, if you want to know before doing everything, then you're not going to do anything because you don't know until you do. At least that is my experience, is that level of knowledge can never be complete. And so instead, what I like to try and do is just focus on checking off the box of doing the thing, whatever it is. And then looking back on, okay, how can I figure out what the heck I'm doing? Right. So that's how all of this stuff has snowballed for me. Is I didn't know how to close a creative deal. Like I was on the phone with these people knowing, I've watched thousands of hours of Pace's seller calls. I've been in all these Zooms, but I didn't know how to actually do it because I hadn't done it. So I'd get on the phone with these agents that would be like, how many deals have you closed and how does this work? And I had no idea, but I just went for it. And like I said earlier, after the first one I closed, I was like, I know how to do this now. Like I know what they're looking for because I finally figured out the strategy that got me to the yes.
Yeah.
And I just focused on that thing. I was like, I am going to do this a lot more because it's working. And so that's, I don't know, I hope that's helpful. Like that's what it is for me, is that knowing without doing is only a one piece of the puzzle.
Dude, that's a perfect analogy, bro. Matter of fact, I wrote that one down. I'm going to have to borrow that one. I'll give credit where credit is due. That was perfect though, man. But yeah, you can't learn how to drive a parked car, right?
Exactly. But you can watch all the content on it,
100%.
And you can pass the written test too. That's the other thing, right? That's why there's two parts to a driving test.
100%.
Right? Pass the written test, but you still got to go out there and do the thing.
Absolutely. So at what point do you have anybody who's because I just feel like that moment is so pivotal for a lot of people deciding to take that next action. I know for me, for example, I set myself on the sidelines a lot. I'm just kind of sitting here like waiting to, all right, I'm going to take that jump type of deal, right? I'm like psyching myself up. And every time I would kind of look around at my life and the lack of progress that I was making, there's a quote, and I don't remember who said it or where it's from, and I'm not going to be able to quote it verbatim, but it's basically something along the lines of, when the fear of or when the, oh my gosh, I'm gonna butcher this, when the pain of staying in the exact same position outweighs the fear of the unknown, that's when change happens.
Yep.
And that happened for me in my business when I'm just like, man, I'm tired of not making any progress and just staying in the same. And once that fear of the unknown is outweighed, or the being able to jump into is outweighed by the fear of the unknown, that's when that change happens. And whether that's in business, whether that's in life, even I'll use a personal example, even for me, for my fitness stuff. Being an entrepreneur, especially up here in Alaska, Chris is in New York. The majority of the stuff that we do is all over the lower 48. So I'm rarely, not in front of my computer or not in front of a camera or near a phone or anything like that. And so when the, not necessarily the fear of the unknown, but when the pain of staying not as physically fit as I wanted to be is at a point to where you're just like, no, I'm going to do anything and everything I can. If that means I've got to go run 1.5 miles twice a day or whatever, like, you're going to go take that leap. You're going to go figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah. The pain thing is a big one. I've, the sales training that I've watched with Alex Ramosi, he talks about where, he does the gym stuff. And that was basically exactly what he would say to people when they would come to me for the weight loss, programs that he would do is, you know, they would say, maybe I'll come back in 6 months. And he would essentially say, you know, you're 200 pounds now. You're going to come back in 6 months and be 250 pounds. And maybe then the pain will be bad enough that you'll be willing to take the steps necessary. Right. And I think that the pain tolerance is different for everybody, because you can look and see that there's the majority of people, I would say, may never hit that pain threshold to where they do anything about it. You know, because you hear people every day that complain about their job, and they may be uncomfortable, but are they in enough pain to where they're actually going to do something? And do they know? Then the question, of course, becomes, do they know what to do? And that's where, you know, if the pain is bad enough, that's where you see people, I think, thrive the most, because they're backed into a corner and they don't have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, quitting your job and burning the ships, that's a good way to kind of jumpstart and get that, get into the driver's seat, so to speak. Well, let me ask you real quick, because we got maybe about 5-10 minutes left. So if anybody's got any specific questions or anything that they're wanting to know from what Ryan has shared, or maybe something he hasn't shared yet, please, guys, throw this in the comments. But I've got a couple things I'd like to ask myself. You know, you've talked about you know, structuring your day, you're building a team, you're kind of doing all these things, you're networking with people. One of my 2 questions is, one, what book are you reading right now? What types of books are you reading to grow your self-development, to grow your leadership, to grow your skills on the phone? What does your self-development look like right now? What are you doing? What is a good routine?
So book-wise right now, I'm about halfway done reading a book called 12 and a Half by Gary Vee. If you guys haven't heard of it, it's all about character traits. So a little bit different than some of the books I've read, but it's 12 and a half, the half being the candor, he calls it kind candor. It's the character trait that he's still working on. But it just breaks down how he utilizes those traits in his everyday life. And it's really good just because it's a little bit different of an approach to business. So thoroughly enjoying that book. I'm also trying to read more books on just kind of leadership and building a team. And that's also a lot of what I'm doing podcast wise, because, you know, coming from engineering, like the stuff I'm doing right now is basically sales and marketing. So not my world, you know, like I mean, like by trade, I'm supposed to be sitting behind a computer doing work where nobody ever sees me. That's what I do. I tinker with stuff and I code. So now all of a sudden, you know, like for example, Project Forward, right? Like last week I started my YouTube channel. Like he wants all of us, the homework from today was to start a podcast. Here I am. It's funny how that worked out. But yeah, you know, like this is stuff that's the exact opposite of what I do. I don't like the front facing stuff as much, or anything like that. But that's what I'm working on, is just reading in more about how to do those things. But just like we talked about earlier, also doing it, right? So like I am watching more content and listening to more podcasts surrounding sales and marketing when it comes to personal brand, getting your name out there, being a leader, all these things. And I'm doing it. Yeah. Right. So like with the YouTube stuff, like I don't know which microphone is best. I have no idea how to do lighting for a studio that looks good like you guys. Like I'm figuring that crap out. But at the same time, and of course, per usual with almost everything I've done, pace was the kick in the tail. Like nobody cares. You have to just go do the thing and you'll figure it out. And I'm sure when you guys, you know, started doing stuff live like this, you probably didn't have the perfect setup and you figured out along the way and you sound better and you look better and whatever. But as long as the content's there, and this is what Pace talked about last week, I think, as long as the content's there, people will show up and people will gain value. And that's, you know, the classic, like if you go back and watch Pace's videos, you know, iPhone videos in his bedroom, that have more views than his videos now. It's not the production, it's the intrigue and the concepts behind it. And so that's what I'm like in the thick of right now, is trying to figure out how to do that and do it well.
You know, when I started doing this, I had a lot of, like, without like dragging this out another 45 minutes, because I can get long-winded, but one of the things that really hindered me being in Alaska was there isn't anybody doing what I want to be doing here. So figuring out, I mean, it's almost like trying to build a business from another planet. And so, I mean, just talk about ups and downs as an entrepreneur, man. I mean, everything is good. And then an hour later, it's like, and so it really kind of helped shape my mindset. And I had to start figuring out a lot of these things. And like you said, man, and like Pace said, like, especially once you leave that W-2, nobody's setting your alarm for you. Nobody's telling you when you got to get up. No one's telling you when you got to have a meeting. No one's telling you when you got to make calls. No one's telling you anything. So you got to figure all this kind of stuff out. And no one's going to tell you, when you got to start a podcast or, well, I guess until now, I mean, Pace is doing that, but up until recently, figuring all this kind of stuff out. I was reading a book a couple years ago. It's called You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. It's an amazing book. If you guys are looking for something to read, it's a really, really good book. I probably read that maybe twice a year or something. Really phenomenal book. You Are a Badass. And in this book, she's talking about a point in her life when she's struggling to grow her presence as an author and as a writer. And she gets to a point, I think, like her car like takes a kaput and she needs to go buy a new car. And so she's got this car that she's narrowed it down to 2 cars. One that is kind of pushing the limits of her budget of where she is, because as she's a struggling writer. And then there's another one that she just can't afford. And so she's toying on these 2 things, and she goes to bed the night before she was going to pull the trigger, and she's sitting there laying in bed, and she's thinking about this, and she thinks she has herself sold on the one that she can afford. It's going to be a little bit of a stretch, but she can make it happen. And she's laying in bed and she's imagining herself driving in it, sitting in it, messing with the buttons, all that kind of stuff, getting the feel for it, the smell of it. And then pictures herself sitting in the other one that she can't afford. And obviously that emotion was a lot greater. And it was interesting that she went ahead and put herself in that situation where she went and bought the car that she couldn't afford. And then it caused her to have to solve that problem of, okay, now I've got to be looking at things from a different lens. I've got to figure out what I'm going to do to make it happen. And I remember reading that, and I kind of did the same thing when I first got started with, podcasting and kind of putting myself out there a little bit more. I didn't necessarily have the confidence or the know-how on how to do this. And to be honest with you, a lot of the things that were going through my mind was like, dude, why would anybody listen to me? I'm just some dumbass kid from Alaska. And I have nothing to share with anybody. I have no idea why anybody would listen. But I told my wife that I wanted to get a podcast thing. And so she kind of did the same thing where she bought me a mic and, a little mixing board that I could connect into my computer. And then when I had it, kind of like Jen was talking about getting that new car, it's like now that I have it, you kind of put yourself in that position to where you can't just let it sit here. You have to go out and you have to use it and figure out a way to, build and monetize and all that kind of stuff from it. So, I appreciate you sharing that though, dude.
Yeah.
You've got to go out there and you got to take action. But real quick,
Absolutely.
The second question that I had for you is after your experience in Arizona and getting to sit down with people and have those higher level conversations, actually in person, and it makes such a freaking difference. And that's why one of the goals for Chris and I is, Chris might as well be in Alaska. We need to get out more. I mean, living in upstate New York, I call it Diet Alaska. But we need to get out. One of our goals is we want to get out and do some more meetups and things like that. But what are some of the things that you have done? Have you taken anything from those experiences of being in Arizona and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go frequent Tampa more, or I'm gonna go put more. I'm gonna go do my own meetups, or are you doing anything like that to have those higher level networking opportunities more local to you? Or are you doing what Chris and I are wanting to do and putting time aside to go out and fly to attend some of these other meetups and get into these other higher rooms? Or kind of what's changed in that realm of networking since you've gotten back from Arizona?
Yeah, I think sometimes we have an idea in our head that we just can't quite put our finger on, right? When it comes to what we're trying to accomplish. And when you surround yourself with other people in the same space, you start to hear more about what they do, and potentially something strikes a chord. And that's kind of what it's been for me. So being out in Arizona, there's a lot of conceptual ideas that I had of how I could grow, how I could build my business, how I could help other people do the same. And there's things, for example, like I was hanging out there and I was with Jeff Smith and Wants Peta, if you know him, and all the guys that do the Houston Power Hour. And, they talked about how they do it, what it looks like, how it's helped people. And I was like, I have never thought of that, but that sounds amazing. It gets more people together. It helps people get deals. It helps me learn how to host events and do all those things. That sounds awesome. And so that's something that I'm working on doing now in Jacksonville. But it was absolutely also the get out and do it thing. So the Jacksonville crowd is great. I love everybody in Jacksonville. We do a monthly meetup. That's how I met everybody basically that I work with and know now. And so that was how I got my start, and I'll always, want to continue to do those things. But absolutely, it's the same thing you said, just getting out there more. So when I flew to Phoenix is when my partner Houston McKay, I had virtually met him, but I had never really met him and gotten to know him as a person. When I flew to Phoenix, I just hung out with him a couple days while I was out there, got some food, whatever. And we just kind of talked about our strategies and what we were trying to accomplish and whatever. And we didn't agree on anything then, but within a week of me getting back home, I called him and I said, hey, I don't know why we didn't talk about this when we were there, but I think we should partner up and do this thing. And so that was how that happened. It was just because I flew out there. And when I flew to Phoenix, I actually, which is a little more normal for me, and I get that compared to some people if you knew more about my past, but I flew out there and I didn't know anybody. I didn't book a place to stay. I basically posted on Facebook and said, hey, I'm flying to Phoenix for 2 weeks. I've never met any of you, but I'm sure I'm going to figure it out. So like, send me a message if you want to hang out. And I went out there. I took the rest of my vacation time and a week off from my job to go out there. And essentially it was just like, I don't know what exactly I'm going to accomplish, or if I'm going to end up spending 12 hours a day just sitting in a coffee shop since I don't know anyone. But I recognized that I just wanted to get around those people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just getting close to the people. And so that's more of what I'm trying to do now with getting to local meetups, paying more attention to events that I can fly to, like you guys said. I actually fly back to Phoenix for another 2 weeks next week. So again, just going back and forth, being flexible with getting around those people and those events, because that is exactly what got me to where I am. And seeing that, it makes it so much more obvious. Hey, don't stop doing what you're doing. Like if that worked for me the first time, then I need to do that, but do it even more.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Just consistency, and that I think that's pretty neat, more so. And as Jesse stated earlier, that's something that we're trying to focus on as well. It's just flying out to different meetups, whether it's close by and or maybe a few hours. Because let's be transparent, more so. Like the more you keep putting yourself out there, the better relationships you're going to develop. You never know what opportunities are behind there.
Yeah, there's so many good people out there.
Yeah, 100%. And guys, I want to apologize first. My internet is very unstable right now. I'm not for sure what happened. Like I went out and then came back in, and now look like the video is still lagging on my end, but you guys can hear me though, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, Chris, you look good. You sound good. We can tell you polished your head this morning. You look fantastic, man.
Just a little bit.
Love
Amazing.
it. Well, Ryan, any parting words for everybody today, man? And where can everybody reach out to you to work with you?
Yeah, parting words for people. I think anything is possible, or if you surround yourself with the right people. I think that's what I've experienced, is that, it sounds like a dream to quit your W-2 and find success. But it's not a dream. It's just something that you need vision on. If you quit your job and have no clue what the heck you're doing and don't have anybody to help out, yeah, it's going to be pretty hard. And the other thing I can say is, as I'm starting to experience some of the stuff that I talked about, I think it's become a rapid question that I'm sure you guys have experienced as well, which is, how did you accomplish this? Or how did you get here? How are you doing what you're doing? And people just don't recognize the value in consistency. That's one of my biggest words, is just, like I said, the past year, I wasn't doing nothing. I just wasn't doing the type of stuff that people saw. And now I've finally started, trying to be more vocal about it. And people are like, "That's crazy. How can you pull that off?" Well, because I've spent a long time, putting in the hours that people don't see, late at night, early in the morning, and stuff like that. So putting in the time works, and I hope that can be a something that pushes other people forward as well, because people feel like they spend 3 months doing the thing and then they quit, and that happens all the time, every day, right? I'm not having success, and the problem is that I think people just measure success in the wrong ways, or they're not looking for ways to measure their success. Where if you work for 3 months and you haven't wholesaled a deal, but you've learned how to overcome 15 objections, and you've learned how to pull better leads, and you've gotten comfortable on the phones, then what are you talking about? Like, it's not about the deal.
Yeah.
You have to measure your success in smaller increments of a measurement of success and a longer timeline of your eventual goal. And if you combine those two things, then it's basically impossible not to succeed.
Very true.
Bro, what an amazing way to end that. You let me know when you get your podcast going up, man, so I can be the first subscriber, dude.
Dude, it's coming soon. I started my YouTube channel this week, so there's going to be stuff there eventually. So if people want to check that out, it's just my last name, Schrope, on there, and then Schrope_321 on Instagram. Send me a message. I do my best to respond to all of them when I can. So yeah, hopefully I was helpful to people on here, just like, Chris and Jesse have been for me and so many other people.
Bro, thank you so much. We appreciate you. We love you, Ryan. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Schrope, man, give him some love in the comments. If you guys got value from today, please, the only thing that we ask is to share this with a friend. Go text it to somebody. Go share it on Facebook. Tag somebody in it. Someone who could benefit and who will be 1% better tomorrow from the things that Ryan has shared with us today. Ryan, thank you very much for spending some time with us today, man. Really appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thanks again, Ryan. And guys, don't forget to subscribe to Spotify. Whatever, if you're using an Apple device or Android device, we're on both platforms. Guys, we're on also Amazon Music. Feel free to reach out anytime to be a resource. And again, Ryan, thanks again for coming on. And until next time, guys, have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the House of Cards podcast with Chris James and Jesse Stanton. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and have learned something new about real estate investing. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more tips and tricks. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform.